Many of us that are overweight or obese, we want to lose weight to get healthy. Well, here is the twist. We first need to get healthy to then lose weight. And one of the things that's not allowing us to be healthy and lose weight is inflammation. Let's talk about inflammation. I went through a huge weight loss journey. I went from 235 pounds to 145 pounds. That's a weight loss of 90 pounds or 40 kilos, 106 to 66. I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a nutritionist, but I want to share with you the tips that I learned throughout my journey that helped me get to that point, going from the severe obese to normal weight. And one of the things I had to learn about, and I wish I had learned about it much sooner, was inflammation. So let me talk to you about what is inflammation. Inflammation is something that is the response of our immune system to any problems we have in the body. And inflammation is very bad, and one of the things that it does trigger is obesity. And it triggers it in a way that we don't even acknowledge, because we've been loading our body with so many unhealthy foods that inflammation has been growing along all the years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, or even 50 years, like what it was my case. And it's getting that pain there. Our body doesn't even recognize it. It's kind of the same thing as when you get that experience of the frog and hot water. If you put that frog in hot water, it jumps out. But if you slowly increase the temperature of the water to boiling, the frog just stays there comfortably and die. And that's what happens with us with inflammation. We are accumulating over and over again, and these things accumulate. And the problem is this pain exists in your body, but it's creating an overwhelming of signals in your nervous system that you don't recognize the other signals that your brain is not needing to receive, such as I'm full, my appetite is growing, I need new stuff, I'm completely full, stop eating. We don't even get those other signals. So we need to fight inflammation to get this. Other problems of inflammation are not just related to obesity, and this is things like the age frailty. As we accumulate, like I was mentioning, we get more and more problems along the time. Joint pains, atherosclerosis, cardiovascular diseases, neurological diseases, fatty liver, and even cancer. All of this comes from inflammation. So I did wish to learn it much earlier. Now, if you look at our journey, we want to get from this obese, overweight, not healthy, into the normal and healthy lifestyle. And to get there, what we think is let's lose weight to get there. But when we start losing weight, what happens is, because we didn't fix that underlying cause, which is inflammation, or one of the underlying causes, it just bounces back to this overweight. If the inflammation is still there, you will be regaining that weight. So I've been talking a lot about the calorie restriction, and that will help, and we need to do it. But we have to also to get healthy as we go. So the correct journey should be fight inflammation so that we get from the not healthy to healthy, get rid of everything that is creating inflammation in our body. And once we get healthy, it becomes much easier to lose weight and go to a normal weight. I wish really that I had learned this much earlier, because it feels like we are doing all this calorie restriction and it just doesn't get us to that point. And our body just fights getting into that area. So we need really to understand how to fight. And what do we need to fight inflammation? Okay, there is a bunch of stuff we need to understand and what causes inflammation. So about the things we need to do to fight inflammation, and this is all about diet and nutrition. So the first thing is limit or eliminate all inflammatory foods that you are eating. And I'll talk about and explain what are these inflammatory foods. Oh my God, I wish I had learned about it much earlier in my journey. The other thing is then increase on eating on a lot of anti-inflammatory foods. And there are a lot of anti-inflammatory foods. And we really need is to focus on these. So you can see immediately the two the two main things are all about food, eating. So we're going to get into this diet restriction that I've told about after we understand how the calorie restriction works. Control your blood sugar, and mainly is insulin. The blood sugar and insulin are very tightly coupled. We usually control more the blood sugar than the insulin, and this already gets you into a bad stage or a later stage in your process, because the insulin accumulates over time. It is fighting your blood sugar, it's regulating. That's one of the things that insulin does. And if you have a problem with insulin and we get into insulin resistance, our blood sugar just gets out of control, and we get to what we know diabetes as an example. And we almost all of us are in a pre-diabetic situation, so we need really to understand what we need to do to avoid getting into those other complications. But I'll talk about this in other videos down the time. Another thing is walk and exercise. Walk and exercise is so good to reduce inflammation. And you remember that one of the topics we talked before, walk versus cardio. Cardio does have an impact on your joint pain. So walk allows a lot to reduce that inflammation and do a lot of fat burning that we need to do. The other one is to reduce and manage stress. We live in a world where chronic stress has become the norm. We get stressful for our jobs, for our family. If there is a recession, economy problems, it's always a nightmare to get into the stress, and we need to learn how to manage the stress. Meditation, calm, walking is good for this. And then the other one is sleep well. Some of us, we don't focus on sleep. And actually, that is one of my key points now, that in my journey, I'm trying to learn how to sleep better. But okay, let's go back to foods. And what are the inflammatory foods that we need to avoid? Okay, highly processed foods. These canned foods that are ready made for us to eat. They have been highly processed with a ton of sugar in it, salt, and a lot of bad nutrients, because they just want to make packages of foods with the costs as cheap as possible to be able to sell to you. You remember that the last episode I talked about learn to cook to lose weight? If you learn to cook, you will learn to avoid the high processed foods and mainly work on these raw materials that we should use for getting it. Another one is deep fried stuff and the seed oils. They are rich in omega-6, and it just creates a lot of problems that creates inflammation for us. Our body doesn't handle correctly deep fried stuff. So we need to be careful with all this type of foods that we eat. Another one should be obvious. Sugar, soda, sweetened drinks. Sugar is horrible on inflammation. It just accumulates and accumulates. You heard about the blood sugar stuff that I talked about? That has a direct impact, but sugar also triggers a lot of insulin in your body. So we need to be careful with this stuff. Cakes and pastries. These have a lot of refined carbs. They have a ton of sugar in it. We need to avoid this kind of foods. The other one, and talking about refined carbs, white bread, white rice, pasta, these are all things that we should avoid in our diets. And last but not the least, snacks, chips, cookies, crackers. These are highly processed, so we should avoid it. It's not just these inflammatory foods. It looks like, oh my God, you're taking out all the foods I love. Yeah, I know, because these have another problems which create addiction. And sugar and carbs creates addiction. So that will be something that we will need to learn how to fight it as we go forward. But do think about starting to reduce this when you do your calorie counting of foods. But the good thing and the good news is there are some anti-inflammatory foods that we can incorporate into our diet? Well, it's not that we can, it's we should incorporate in our diet. And it was so good when I learned this, because I do like those, and those are really good to do it. You know, berries. Who of us doesn't love strawberries, raspberries, blueberries? The problem is we can't put all that, sugar on top and creams on top and all this other stuff. That creates a problem, because then we've got something anti-inflammatory together with the inflammatory stuff, and we want to avoid those kind of things. But berries are so good in this, and they are low in calories as well. Fatty fish. This gives you proteins, but gives you also omega-3 fatty acids. Omega-6 are the bad ones. Well, it's not really the bad ones. The thing is that our foods, we need to be balanced between omega-3 and omega-6, and it should be a ratio of 1:1. The problem is our foods today are so rich in omega-6 and so poor in omega-3 that we can't keep that balance. So that's why we need to increase omega-3 and reduce omega-6, so that we get into this 1:1 balance that we should be having as part of our diet. Unfortunately, if you look at your diet, probably you are in a ratio of 1 omega-3 to 20 omega-6. So it's huge, that difference. We really need to leverage that gap and bring it down. The other thing is cruciferous veggies, broccoli, cauliflower, kale. These are all very good to reduce inflammation in your body, and we should really focus and have a lot of these in our diet. Avocados is nature's perfect food. You can't imagine the quantity of good things that avocados have. It's rich in fibers, it's rich in fatty, healthy fats. So it is something that we should really eat a lot. And you will see a lot of the recommendations I will do forward is all around the avocados. I tended not to like avocados. Today it's an acquired taste for me. I love them, and I managed to get them mixed into basically almost everything I do. And who of us doesn't like, Mexican food? Well, skip the tortilla, get heavy on the guacamole, you'll get ready for it. But once more, don't buy the guacamole made, make it yourself. Learn how to cook and get the avocados into it. It is so good. You will be so much more healthier with getting this. Another one good thing is extra virgin olive oil. When we have the salads, always make sure that you drizzle it with olive oil and avoid the other dressings that have sugar or other things that you don't know on top of it. Last but not least, tomatoes. Tomatoes have huge good benefits in anti-inflammatory. So as you can see here, a good salad with olive oil, some avocados and some tomatoes in it becomes really good. I really hope that you enjoyed this video, this session, and you are enjoying all the other videos I have done. I would really like to be able to reach the 1,000 subscribers, so please do subscribe it, and then share with your friends. I do believe that they will like this kind of information, especially if they like me, we're in this overweight or obese categories, and we want to get into a more healthier life. So please subscribe, share. It doesn't cost you a thing, and it will mean a lot for this channel and to grow this message I'm trying to give out. In the meantime, there are other videos that you can watch that I've been increasing in my library of this channel. Thank you so much, and hope to see you soon.